people finally realize that you need to do something with the data. For me, it felt like all these years we were busy getting the data in like a data warehouse. And it felt like if the data is in the data warehouse, then we are all fine. But of course, you need to do something with it. You need to translate it. You need to visualize it to actually see what you can do with it. And I think the past, 2-3 years, people really realized that you need to translate all these insights.
Hey there, welcome to Beta Talks, the podcast. I am Rick.
And I am Oscar.
And today we are joined by Valerie Junk, who is the owner of PorcuBI. Welcome, Valerie.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be part of this.
Well, I'm so happy that you're here because, I mean, in the intro I said you're the owner of PorcuBI, but let me just read out your LinkedIn title, right? So it says Microsoft Data Platform MVP, owner of PorcuBI, Power BI data visualization expert, data-driven storytelling, Power BI architect, trainer, and speaker.
That's all the time we have for today.
I mean, but how? How do you combine all of these, well, the roles that might take a little bit of your time, right?
Yeah, take some time. I think the secret is to do the stuff you really love and combine it. I love data. I love to visualize data, and I love to talk about it and teach about it. So then you already have like the trainer, the speaker, and all these kind of things.
Yeah, and when you do that a lot, the MVP eventually follows, right? If you consistently do that for a longer period of time.
Yes. It's of course a lot of community work also, but that's what I love, because when I started with Power BI and with working in data, I didn't have anyone that told me how it all works. I had to find it out myself, and I went on search engines on the internet, and I was watching videos, and I learned everything myself, and it's quite a struggle. And I thought, I don't want people to feel like that. I want to help people. I want to guide them. I want to give them some hope when you start in this industry, like these things you can do. That's why I share all this information and I share all these files with people, because I think, well, you need to start somewhere, and it's so much nicer if you do it together and learn from each other.
Yeah, because I think, well, not necessarily data in general, but especially visualizing the data. I think we've all worked with SQL reporting services, or at least we've seen reports of them, maybe even some Crystal reports. And then Power BI came along, and of course we have Tableau. So there's a lot of different types of reporting tools available. But I have the feeling, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that only recently all of these tools became a lot more interesting and important, because the amount of data we're gathering and the amount of insight we can get out of that data has exploded over the past couple of years.
Yes. And I think not only we get all these insights now, it's getting easier to get them. Everyone can use these tools. They're getting easier and easier. But also people finally realize that you need to do something with the data. For me, it felt like all these years we were busy getting the data in like a data warehouse. And it felt like if the data is in the data warehouse, then we are all fine. But of course, you need to do something with it. You need to translate it. You need to visualize it to actually see what you can do with it. And I think the past, 2-3 years, people really realized that you need to translate all these insights. You need to get the insights. They are not there just laying around in the data.
No, because as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not as into data as you are, apparently, or clearly. But if you look at, I mean, we now even have architectures for data solutions, right? We have the medallion architecture and all that kind of different types of fundamental things that were added to the data ecosystem that allows us to now make more value out of that data. Because as long as it's data, it doesn't hold value yet, right? It only becomes value once you
Make
get
it
information from the data. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and I think now we all talk about this medallion structure. This, of course, it existed before, but we had different names for it. But medallion structure is something that people can visualize. They know what you're talking about. So like, oh, gold, that must be the best. Like before you had all these other names for it and people were just like, it doesn't speak to me. I don't know how this works. So I think as a community and in the data world, we start to speak like end user language much more nowadays, which is good because you can't work in these like silos where there's one group having all the knowledge and the rest of the people are just like, I don't know what you're doing. It's not working anymore. You need to work together. You need to understand each other. And therefore it's important to have these same words for things, descriptions.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then a couple of weeks ago, we had Lisa Hoving on. She's more of a data engineer type. You explicitly have visualization in your headline, so to speak. Does that mean that you're also more on the Power BI and visualization side of things, or do you take on more roles within the data spectrum?
I take on more roles, but the visualization part, that's what people see. That's what I can kind of sell to people because I can tell them I can create this for you and we will create these insights. But often when I get hired, companies tell me we need someone that visualizes our data because that's the part we are missing. And then we open Power BI or we go and have a look in the data warehouse and it's like, the visualization is not your problem.
That's not where this starts.
That's going to be the last problem.
Yes. I mean, we can make it really pretty and insightful and these kind of things, but we first fix the data model and we first fix the data. So that's also what I'm doing. I create a lot of data models. I clean a lot of data models, these kind of things. And in the end, I visualize it. And I think to really be able to visualize stuff, you need to understand the data. You can't visualize things that you don't understand.
Yeah,
otherwise, it's just pretty.
Yeah, you need to understand the data and the business it's in. Otherwise, it's not helping. And indeed, it's just pretty. It's a management report with 4 pie charts. And red is bad.
Yes, exactly. And I see a lot of these really pretty reports also because people get this knowledge and that's good, how to visualize stuff. But then they tend to forget that you need to have this useful information. It's like the other side where people are really technical, but they forget that people need to take decisions with information. This is the other side where people just make it really pretty, but no one can use it. So we need to get them together to make it actually work.
Yeah, and it's a hard bridge to gap. Like I'm involved in like our internal data project at the moment, and I see now that we're opening up data I know from the platform, like high fidelity data I see in insights every day. And like for me, it's not secret. I have that for 10 years. But it's hard to find a business owner that it would actually be helpful to gather and to give insights. But in the end, to get a good report, you basically need them to ask you the questions, what to give them. Yes. So it's hard for them to make any business case if they don't know what's possible. So there's such a big gap between those worlds because you have the raw data, then you go through maybe a medallion architecture where you could at least explain why it's not done yet, and to go to the next step. But like the last part is hardest because if you have everything, you have an enormous, nice transformation set up, and you have all the data lake house swamps, I don't know, going for you. It's like, okay, I can make a report, but someone needs to own that after that and ask further questions, or even like, could I throw a large language model at this data and solve an actual business problem? Like, but how do you? Because that's teaching, I think, in an organization, isn't it?
Yes, it's also the end user needs to know what they can do also with Power BI and with the data. And I think there's this big problem where you get all this information, but the end user, they just think I open Power BI and then it will solve all my problems. And then I can answer all my questions. But they need to know that they need to communicate what they need. And they only can communicate what they need if they know what's possible. So you need to train them, you need to educate them, and they also need to be open for that. I see a lot of especially like CEOs, CFOs, they're like, yeah, I don't need any training. I just open it and it will be fine. I'm like,
I do Excel for years, so this shouldn't be a problem.
But that's probably the worst question you get every time, right? Can I export this to Excel? I mean, a lot of big businesses still just run entirely on Excel, I think.
Yeah, but like there's and that's then the next step also for some kind of report with insights or even a dashboard. It's like someone needs to test if these numbers make sense, because even if you're coming from the technical side, you don't know what you're missing. And until someone, maybe the CFO in the end, is like, why do you see a difference under the line all the way down? You miss something, or you need to explain why that's a different view on the same thing, and actually makes sense that there's a gap there.
Yep.
It's a lot, I guess. It's a hard problem to solve. Therefore, all the roles.
You need to involve everyone during the whole process, actually. Like if you show the finished report at the end to the CFO, and then the CFO is like, the numbers are not correct, then it's kind of too late. There should be somewhere earlier in the process where you check, like, do these numbers match with what we expect them to look like? And that also involves that people make time, of course, to check these numbers. And that's quite hard because we all want to do these things fast and cheap and without involvement of anyone. They just want an end product, but that it's not working like that. And I think also as professionals, we need to start selling these things in the right way, telling people, if you want this to be successful, you need to be involved. If you want your team to use this in the end, we need the team to test things. We need the feedback from them. So just be also open about this, and also that this will take some time and that costs some money. But in the end, in the long term, this will be a good investment.
Somehow this feels like stuff we did in software development a long time ago, where we actually needed to incorporate business into the process to make sure we had enough buy-in, that they tested what we did. So it feels a little bit like I'm hoping we've learned from what we did in software development, but that we're also reliving it a little bit now in trying to make information out of data.
Yeah, you find out that you again need a ubiquitous language.
Yep. Yeah, so that everybody knows what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, but I see this also just in the business intelligence world. If you look at different tools, I use Power BI, but there are other tools. And I also have like these clients that telling me I'm using this other tool and it doesn't solve our problems. And now we want to use Power BI because we've seen some marketing videos and this will solve our problems. And it's like, it's not a tool. It's not a tool. It's you have these problems because something else is going wrong, like your data doesn't work or you don't know what you want to see yet. But you can try like 5 different tools. If you don't fix these underlying problems, it's never going to work.
And every now and again, the problem is behind the tool, right?
Yes.
So one of the things, okay, just a few steps back. So in my job, I regularly get the question, what type of data store should we use to store our data? Because we also want to do some reporting later on. And then sometimes, or most of the times, companies don't understand why my first question is, how will you be using the data? Why is that important? Well, it's kind of important because you might want to pre-process it. You might want to put it on a read-only environment. You might want to maybe completely turn it around or cache it somewhere. Or, I mean, there might be 10 things you want to do with that data to enable it to be turned into information, but you got to have at least a general idea of how you want to use your data, right?
Yes. Yeah, you need to have some ideas about your data itself, also the format of your data, and in which state your data is. And I know if you ask any client, like, what's your data looking like? They're like, oh, perfect data, it's cleaned already. Like,
You don't have to do anything to it. You
No.
can just run a report and it's fine.
yeah.
This is fine.
Yeah,
see the
somehow that's never the case.
No,
Yeah.
somehow it doesn't work that way, right?
We might have some field level encryption here and there. Not a problem.
We'll work around that. So, what are your go-to tools as soon as you start working? As soon as you start working data, right? You got to transform it a little bit. You got to clean it up, maybe pre-process. Put it
also,
in a different type.
everyone has a preference, right?
That's the thing, right? So, I would like to know what your preference is. Do you just build out C# stuff? Do you use Data Factory?
Well, I wish I would have any knowledge about C#. No, I'm like more the front end type for these kind of things. If I can use Power BI, and of course just Power BI to load the data directly connected to the source, I do that. There are some tools where you can do that quite easily. And like recently, of course, Fabric was implemented, which gives all these new possibilities. Because I worked before in Azure and Azure Data Warehousing and Azure Data Factory, and that's all really nice. But for someone that's mainly working in Power BI, a lot of steps, a lot of things I had to do, a lot of things I had to learn. And now where Fabric was introduced, and it's not even that new anymore, I can do all these things in the same environment. If I need to give like my real personal preference, I like to connect to the data sources directly, but then you don't work with big data. But I kind of like these small data sources where you can show what the potential is.
Yeah, I can imagine that those allow you to give insights really fast into what's possible, right?
Yes. And also they are often underestimated, I think. I know a lot of my clients are like, we have this connection to the data source, but we also can export all the data and then load it somewhere. And but we can first try the data source, and we can always switch back, and we can see how far we get with that, because we don't all need these large data environments. Sometimes a small solution works much better for a company, but they don't know because they see all this documentation and videos and they think they need this huge IT landscape to get like basic information from their data.
And then it can become daunting, right? They think, oh, if we need to dress up all of this stuff just to get our report out, let's maybe just not even look at it.
No,
Well,
if you're then in an environment where like you can do this, because like there's of course environments that change a lot, because there's also a dev team working on that system. Like your reports will tipple over, so you would need to move into that team, or something that's just small and stable. But it's easy to bring something. There's low hanging fruit to actually give a company some insights and actually bring them to the point that they start asking the next question for data, and then you can always go, right? But I do see that once you're going through the other track and you need to hop, then basically you need like 5 tools and 6 different roles straight away. It is so complicated. I learned so much for the project I was part of now, with the amount of tools and choice there is. And then Microsoft, of course, rebranding everything under a single label, so you cannot find it anymore.
Yep.
It's your fault.
And adding multiple services together and then giving those new names as well. So that's also going to be really hard. Yeah, true. No, but and I think this is true for most of the things that are in the data realm. We're really working still on finalizing the first decent versions of all of our tooling. Well, maybe not the first, but we are still very much learning and improving our tools as we go, which also means they need to be rebranded every once and again. Okay, I won't take that one personal. Um, One of the things you also touched upon, Valerie, is that you do a lot for community. Again, with you being a trainer and a speaker, and being so open about that and so vocal about that. That brings on things like being a data platform MVP as well, because you add value to the community. Um, you don't only speak in a conference here or there. I think you speak globally, right?
I speak at a lot of conferences. I think this year it will be 18 conferences, 11 countries.
Wow.
Yes, I travel a lot, I speak a lot, I meet a lot of people. It's amazing because it's not only that you meet all these people, but you realize the different steps and the different parts of the world. They all have different BI, business intelligence problems. Like in the Netherlands, we are really in the cloud and we love all these new things and we'd like to try it. You can try that in Germany. They will not like that a lot. A lot of on-premise,
Nope.
for example. And I was at a conference in Croatia last year and I did a session about data visualization and everyone was really friendly and open. But at the end of the session, some people came towards me and they were like, yeah, this is really nice, but we are really at the moment still getting data out of Excel and we are at a much earlier point where we still try to make sense of our data. So it's nice to see these differences because you also see that we can all win a lot of things there. We can share so much knowledge. And the things we are sharing now, like in these tutorials and trainings, they maybe seem like old news for us. But for other people, this is like the new news. They are still working on these things.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine that one. And then you can bring the knowledge of all of those different countries that you've been to yet other countries to help them learn from that also, right? So in the end, by sharing that knowledge and sharing that experience, the greater community takes value from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think also like there's if you're, let's say, a bit more behind on the stuff, it also saves you a lot of mistakes, right? So you can go straight to a solution. So I think it's awesome, and we will end up really quickly in a good place. And this is really improving. We also see like front-end development at some point going super overcomplicated with all kinds of layers and tools that you needed to know. And it ended up with some specific choices with really mature systems, which were also easy to start with. And I think in data, Microsoft is joining a lot of product in there in under one flag.
Yep.
You see Snowflake doing a lot of things. You will get like a few players that do something specific from the others, but have a full suite on like, well, this is best practice, follow the guides, and it shouldn't be too complicated. Where I think most companies will just enjoy all that experience by just getting the product in.
Yeah, it's also sometimes just nice if you have a question and you put it in a search engine and someone has already answered it.
It's always nice.
Yes.
Best experience.
I mean,
follow along.
Or yourself 2 years ago.
Yeah, just wanted to say I hate it when you have that one problem and you find that one Stack Overflow post of somebody who had exactly the same problem as you, and there's no answers. That's so crap. But I think we've all seen that.
Now, it's nicer to stumble upon your own blog post that you already solved this problem in the past, and you just forgot because it's a long time ago.
Now, one of the things that you actually sent in to talk about, and that actually stood out to me, is as far as your community work goes, you said also why it can be extra tricky when you are the odd one out. So would you care to explain what you actually mean with that one?
What I mean with that one is when I started to go to conferences, and that wasn't even as a speaker, and back then I wasn't an MVP, I felt at some of these conferences like I was the only woman. And I felt like everyone was looking at me, what I was doing, like this feeling like you can't hide somewhere.
Mhm.
It felt like all these guys there, 50% of them look the same. They can hide, they can just sit somewhere, no one will see it. And I always had this feeling like, oh, everything I do, there's a spotlight on me. And I really need to take care about how I look, how I talk to people. You should always take care about these things. But it felt like everything I say could potentially be used against me, and it never happened. But I had this feeling because I always was there kind of alone. I also went there by myself, so I didn't went to these conferences with a team. It was really just me and all these people I didn't know, and all these speakers where I thought, these people are the experts, and isn't this amazing? I think I could never do that, which is really funny if I'm looking back at it now.
18 conferences this year.
Mhm.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah,
do you
apparently
still
it works.
do you still feel like that from time to time?
Well, it changed. It changed in the past years. There are more and more people joining these conferences, a much more diverse group now.
Mhm.
And it's still, I think, 80% men, probably more, but it's getting better. It's getting more diverse, and that makes it also easier because now it feels like, okay, there are other people like me, there are people that struggle with the same problems, these kind of things. And I think especially the data community is a really strong and open community that's quite welcoming. And also, when I started speaking, I was really afraid that people would give me these bad comments. Sometimes when I post something on LinkedIn or an article on my website, I get these comments from mainly men telling me that I'm wrong and they are right. And that's kind of the whole comment. It's not even why, it's just what you're doing is wrong.
Right.
And I was really afraid about that when I was speaking on conferences, because I thought, well, probably I also will get that there, but it never happens. And I think in this community, it would never happen.
Well, the only good thing about the comments is I don't think that's solely for female people posting that, because I always get told I'm not right and somebody else is right. I think that's also part of the internet, unfortunately.
And that's the rule, right? If you really want to know something, post the wrong answer somewhere.
Yes, somebody will come up with the right one pretty
That's
fast.
fastest.
No, but for me that feels that it feels like it could be quite intimidating, because that, of course, that's something that I will never experience, or at least not when going to tech conferences.
You look like the rest.
I might go to other types of conferences or gatherings where I do stand out like a sore thumb, but that can be quite intimidating, right? So is that also maybe partially the reason why you are now actively involved with the Women in Tech community in the Netherlands?
Yes, because I want to show people that it's, yes, it's intimidating, but we are in there together, and it will only change if we go to these conferences, if we speak up, if we post these things. It will not change itself. And I also want to show everyone that the community is really nice and really open-minded. I made so many friends from around the world, and that's amazing. You see all these people at the same conferences over and over again, and it's just like a group of friends traveling around. And everyone's just fine with everyone. Like, it doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter who you are. Just be a nice person, share knowledge, and everyone's okay.
That's how it should be, right? I mean,
That's a community, right?
that's a community, but also that's really how it should be. And I love the fact that more and more conferences are also taking into account that there are people. There's multiple levels of diversity, of course, and then one of the things is there's also people who are neurodivergent, and some people just need to either recharge their social battery or just be in a room and left alone for some time. More and more conferences are adding that to their environments as well. I mean, I've been to a conference where they had literally a dog petting area.
Yes.
We could just sit down and hug a dog. I mean, it gives you such a different type of interaction that after that you'll have energy again. And I think, so this is going to be really heavy. I think society can learn from how sometimes people can work in a close community like what you say about the data community.
Yes, yes. And I think what you said, these conferences, and people organizing these conferences, they see that it's important to be inclusive and provide these areas, especially like the quiet areas. I love them because it can be a lot, these conferences. Like there's a lot of sound, there are a lot of people. You go to the sessions and sometimes it's just really nice to just sit down and have some peace.
And don't have too many things coming in, right, that you have to process, because you have what you said, the sounds, but also the lights, and then you have sometimes even the smells, and you have the sessions, and you have all of those things. So
Yeah.
it can be quite a lot to take in. So it's great to hear that you, or at least I hope that you feel more in place now in locations where you are. And I do think we met at TechFest a couple weeks ago. I do think that you are enjoying being there right now, right?
I do. But it's mainly because it feels like meeting your friends. It's not that feeling of going to conference anymore. It's a feeling I'm going to meet my friends somewhere in the world and we share knowledge. And that's super nice. So I feel fully welcome and at home. It feels like I'm at home wherever I go and these people are, because I get this feeling of community and kind of friendship also.
So for anybody out there listening to this, please go and see the Women in Tech community in the Netherlands, because they do such amazing jobs also helping people either get up on a stage or do their first talking gig, or just being there for somebody when they want to go to a conference. So I think that's something that people really need to look into. While we're talking about that, do you know what time it is?
I think I know what time it is.
It's time
for a totally random question.
Valerie, if you could invent a piece of technology to solve one global issue, what would that be?
Wow.
Yeah, you can take your time. You can take your time. So because there's I mean there's the standard answers that we can all give, right? So world peace and world hunger. But let's make it a little bit more fun for ourselves. And if you then think, so what is that one?
A fun global issue, Rick?
Hey, issues don't necessarily need to be not fun.
No,
I mean, but what would it be for you?
I struggle with the fun part.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be fun. Okay.
A global issue, a serious one.
It can be serious too.
Well, one thing I saw recently was that we have this global warming and the water temperature in, the ocean getting warmer and warmer and warmer. And it means that the coral reefs are dying, and which means the fish will also at some point go. And there are these companies now, all these different companies doing this kind of stuff where they scan the ocean bottom, the temperature, and they try to I saw some 3D printing of coral reefs that they put on existing coral reef that is dead, and then new corals grow there, which can change everything. But all these things now, they work. These are all just small groups. Like they all have these different things. If I could invent anything, and probably it would be reporting related, it would be something that brings all of this data together, combines it, and visualizes where we need to do these things, where we need to build this 3D coral reefs, where we need to maybe position these kind of things. Like really useful and visualizing stuff. So it's always about these kind of things.
Best of both worlds, right?
Yeah, like to get a funding for something like that, you need eyes on it and you need a plan. So a visualization comes definitely in handy there.
Yeah, but also if you know where the need is highest, then that's where you go first, right?
Yes.
And I've seen.
So it's coral prosthetics.
No, I've seen actually. I think it was an American company that took out dying or almost dead coral, and they took it out of the sea, brought it to laboratories, made sure that it started growing again, and made it big and healthy again, and then put it back in the sea. So stuff like that. It's really good to know and see where it might have most effect if you do that. So I can get behind that plan. So let's start a GoFundMe for starting a generic data model, and we'll go from there.
That sounds like a great idea, doesn't it?
Hey, in the end, nobody's stopping us, right? It's only ourselves and our imagination.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I'm going to leave this one. So going back a little bit to all of the work that you do. And we've actually talked about a couple of guests today about the same thing. In the end, I think it all boils down to passion. You need to have a real passion about something that you love doing. And then as soon as you've found your passion, then doing a lot of work and maybe also doing a lot outside of work might not necessarily feel like you're working anymore.
Exactly. I need to admit it still feels a little bit like working, but it makes it easier to work the hours.
Yeah.
It's still tough. If you do a lot of things, like you do your normal job, you write articles, you speak, you train, all these kind of things, it's still a lot. But as long as you love doing it, it's worth it. I think the issue often is that people do a lot, but they don't have the passion. They don't like it really. And then it gets really tough.
Yeah, then you're going to have to force yourself to do it, right? So I have to go and do this.
Exactly. And then it feels like, oh, it's Saturday, but I still want to write or need to write an article, and I still need to record a video and these kind of things. And then it starts to feel like I need to do this stuff, but I don't want to. But I think as long as you feel like, oh, this is what I want to do and this is my passion, it's okay. And additionally, also do some different stuff. Even if it's your passion, don't work 7 days a week. Like, don't do that.
No, you need to unwind as well.
Oh, I think, and especially if the thing you're doing next to it looks a lot like your work, it's good to get some distance. Sometimes it's to change your brain, and because you come back fresher with better ideas after some distance. Yeah. Like I love to this year I took up the piano a bit, so I'm spending a couple of hours a week. Or a couple of hours a night sometimes, just fall in, like, and even though that's also, and sometimes you need to, like, oh, I want to practice more, and it's like, or running or whatever. Sometimes you feel you need to do, but also it's like getting yourself into a habit or almost an addiction with something with a good outcome, and having the option to have a few of them really refreshes your view, because indeed, if you're, I think 40 hours a week doing this on the job and then basically blogging about the exact same thing, and then also helping some private project out, and at some point it's all the same. So indeed, good tip to sometimes spend your time somewhere else.
Yes, and it helps your creativity. Yeah. Something I experience is when I keep on working on the same things and I make a lot of hours, it will have an impact on my creativity. And it's just your brain goes in this mode of we do things and we just survive. The moment you do something else, you go outside or some music, these kind of things, your brain gets these new triggers like, hey, there's something going on. That's good. And for me, that's the moment I get all my ideas. I never had any idea for an article when I was sitting at my desk and was like, I need to write an article. It's always when I'm somewhere outside.
Yep. That's the same like when you're really full on developing and then you stop developing and you are either under the shower or walking the dog or whatever. That's when you think...
That's when you need your notepad.
But wait a second.
No, but that's also the hint that you give someone, like really stuck in a problem. It's like, how to debug this? Take a walk.
Yeah, go outside or at least walk outside or do something else. Yeah, totally true. Valerie, is there anything that you would like to get back to or anything that you would like to add to the episode?
No, you're such lovely people. You asked me like all the questions I could imagine.
Oh, that's a good thing. One thing that actually just jumped into my mind now is, especially looking at the women in tech part and the feeling that you described initially. I also think that the community can really use a couple of good advocates or allies, which mean people that allow you to either walk with them or at least be close by so that if you feel crappy, you can just walk up to the people and say, somehow I don't feel right today. So really, if anybody out there feels like that's something I would like to do too, then again, have a look at, for instance, Women in Tech, because allyship is one of the most important things that helps in bridging those gaps that are still there.
Yes, and everyone's open to help. Just go there, talk to people. And just because people are speaker or on a stage in general, it doesn't mean they're not normal people. Everyone's there for you. Everyone wants to help. So I think that's one of the tips I would give the old me. Just don't be afraid. It's fine. Everyone's there for you. Everyone wants to have or wants that you have a good time. Just go for it.
With that, we close. Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Better Talks, the podcast. Better Talks is made possible by Betterwit Managed Software Development.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.